we're now basically a non-profit without having to do so much hard work as registering and all the legal paperwork. And donations to us now are tax deductible, and so this has been a very good thing for us. And we've already started to get donations, and the other big thing that happened was a grant and building our first supernode. So yeah, so we've got $4,610 in donations. That's through our website. We've got a page there for credit card transactions, and we got $10,000 in grant money coming in next week. So we're finally. It was a bit shaky there for a while when we were setting up the supernova, but we're finally stable financially. So this is a picture from Kim Lau Park in Chinatown, where we're thinking of putting a public access point, and you can see our antenna on that building in the background there. It's a tiny dot, but yeah, if you wander around Chinatown, you can actually see our antenna. And the supernode, this sector antenna, which is a point to multi-point, so that can reach a lot of people, that has a range of about 2 miles or 3 kilometers. And we can also set up point-to-point connections, so we can reach much further. That's like 6-7 miles. So that's kind of the coverage we can get into Brooklyn and up to Midtown. And the plan is to do some point-to-points into Brooklyn, like those blue arrows, and then do the little neighborhood mesh networks to spread it out from there. And yeah, and eventually we'll do point-to-points from there, so we can get up to Queens and maybe even the Bronx. Well, our first grant, it's Beyond the Net. This is it's actually from the Internet Society, which the Global Internet Society. So it's based in Geneva, and yeah, it's a big thing for us. Charlie applied for the grant, and we got it. It came through 2 weeks ago.
And I would say it was helped by the Radical Networks. One of the women judging the grant came to Radical Networks and saw your performance at the webcast of your performance at the end.
So RB's performance, or yeah.
Thank you, RB.
Yeah, and there's some kind of scary things happen during the year, and that have affected us. I'll just go over them. Time Warner is now called Spectrum. It's kind of been a rallying cry for us. I hate Time Warner Cable, and I think they heard us and changed their name to Spectrum, which is, I guess the new one's Spectrum sucks or something. Yeah, the other big deal is these internet kiosks, which you've probably seen. There's hundreds of them up now, and some people really hate them. They think they're surveillance machines, and anyway, to me, they're gigabit internet gateways, and we can actually use these. I did a blog post how you can easily use a Ubiquiti nanostation as a repeater, and you just aim it at that, and you've suddenly got gigabit. No, it's not really. It's about 200 megabits download. It's really fast.
Can I ask you about the privacy implications of that? Because I think that it comes into privacy wasn't owned by, I believe, by Sidewalk Lab, just owned by Google.
Yeah, this 3 or 4 companies that are all in partnership to do it. The main one is actually Intersection, and
So whenever you use any Google product, you are subject to their terms and conditions. So if you do use it as a repeater, are you going to let the people who are using your product know this? Because as part of using this product, a lot of people don't realize that this is owned by, this product is owned by Sidewalk Labs, which is owned by Google, and that you're subject to Google's terms and conditions.
They're not actually majority owned by Google.
yeah, it's Intersection's the majority of it.
Yeah, and the other thing is we don't sell product. We're not selling you a product. We're giving you access to a network that is ostensibly Ethereum. Two, you would use what's called a VPN, or a virtual private network, that would allow what you would need to do is connect to a server somewhere else before you go to like Facebook or Google or Netflix, and then you can, in between where you're using this and that server, everything is totally encrypted. And so we're rolling out that solution in the next couple months too. This was just a test.
No, I'm not saying that I see what you're saying. I'm not saying that they're owned 100% by Google, but I'm just saying that, people might like to know, where their information is.
Yeah, I mean, any hotspot connected to this will not be unencrypted. They will not be able to glean any data. I will guarantee that personally.
Just a brief comment. I think this is an important issue too, and we could talk about it all night long. If anyone wants to know more about this, there was a pretty decent presentation about it at the recent Hope conference. I think it was called Surveillance on the Internet, and I think
Hope.
you actually covered that.
Yeah, if you go to our live stream to the same address and go down to like the home conference, you go about halfway down the page, you'll find the whole thing about that.
Yeah, there's
An hour session talking just about that
Yeah,
topic.
I was in the conference about it, and this was brought up as well, so thank you very much.
Yeah, so my answer is always the same with privacy. Use a VPN, and we're going to provide that service soon. Yeah, I've got a blog post about how you can do this repeater thing, and it's very simple. You just buy the router, upload a config file, and it works.
Hi, I had a question. Like the gateways for the mesh network to get to the internet, the uplink, can they associate with wirelessly to another router for the uplink, or does it have to be plugged in? Like most of the routers I've ever seen, like you plug it from the router has to be a hard connection, Ethernet connection from your router to like your cable modem for the uplink. But can these mesh nodes like associate with the client and also associate with an uplink at the same time wirelessly? Like would it be able to associate with this internet kiosk wirelessly?
Yeah,
They do? Okay.
yeah, the mesh network. Basically, what it is an ad hoc network that it just figures out where the fastest gateway is and uses that as a gateway. So if you've got 2 gateways and a bunch of 10 mesh routers, they'll all try and figure out which is the fastest gateway and network to that one.
So the gateway can associate with another gateway for the uplink as well, wirelessly.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
so
you
you need
don't-
2 antennas?
No, you don't need to antennas. You could just do symbolics. It doesn't pair. Yeah, the crux of the mesh is that it doesn't pair. That's the point. There are some cons to that, like you have a lot more routing overhead because you don't know the best path, for example. But like, yeah, the point of mesh is to make it like flexible.
Okay.
And like we could talk all day about all the ways that's
And this company, Intersection's a billboard company. They make their money from doing the ads. And I've actually, Nicholas, the guy that designed this network, comes to the meetup sometimes. So I've spoken to these people. And
I thought the only thing connected to this was Apple products.
no, it's just a normal open Wi-Fi network.
That's if you want an encrypted connection.
I asked at one meetup, can't someone just dump their Time Warner and just, if they live next door to one of these things and just use it the whole time? And they kind of said that there would be a time limit, on, I guess they do it by MAC address,
It's 30 days.
Is
Yeah.
that what it is?
Yeah.
It's 30 days. You have to click it, and then it asks, it formats for an email, or it just looks for anything formatted as an email and doesn't do confirmation or anything.
Yeah.
So like all you would have to do to totally avoid them stopping you is create a new MAC address every 30 days and then like press enter.
Brian and I have talked to the NYC Mesh people, and they're like, I mean, not the NYC Mesh, the Link NYC people, and they kind of like shrugged at the idea. They're like, we're not gonna stop you, like, don't get caught, basically.
The other weird thing is it's got a dome Wi-Fi router in it, which you normally put on a ceiling so it gives coverage downwards. They face it upwards, so it's got a very strong signal. If you're on the 30th floor of a building, you still get a strong signal.
Really?
Yeah, there was an election issue that was the other strange thing that happened. This is an actual quote from the guy that was elected. So I was wondering what we were going to do for a couple of weeks. But I mean, I think we're more important than ever now. That we really need some decentralized community-owned networks. As the projects got bigger, I found it really difficult to prioritize everything. So I keep an updated blog about what our top priorities are, and that's them in order at the moment. Yeah, if you want to help with us, you can look at the blog and find things that we really need to be done. Early on when I was researching mesh networks, I found everyone talking, all these websites talking about what they're going to do, and then you look at the last update and it was like 3 years ago. All these websites die without telling you what difficulties they had. And so I always vowed to say what difficulties we have when we try and do this network. Apartment rooftop installs have been so difficult. We put so much work into that. It takes days to coordinate the install because you've got to do 2 rooftops at once. And so you need 2 people. It's a lot of work. And then people will move like in 6 months, so it's all wasted. It's really hard to get line of sight between 2 buildings. There's always something in the way. So we're kind of moving away from doing straight apartment to apartment installs, and we're trying to get a tall building first, and then from the tall building go down to the different apartment roofs. Yeah, it's just been way too much work doing these installs. Around the middle of the year, we're going to do all these antenna tests and test the ranges of them, and it's all. There's going to be blog posts and.
Oh yeah. It's really hard to do.
It's really hard to do.
Antenna ranges, largely because if you're like going somewhere that's flat enough that you can test it, and you don't have like 100-foot pole that you're putting your antenna on, it runs into the curvature of the Earth well before you break your signal. So yeah, like all of our tests have like weird refraction things, and like I got really disappointing results, and so I didn't publish them because science works like that.
Yeah, we should publish them. You got to say how difficult these things are, or no one realizes.
Yeah.
We were going to do all these tests from the supernode doing ranges, but it's so hard to coordinate all that stuff. We've done a couple of tests. Getting people to talk to their neighbors. Yeah, the growth that we've had in certain areas like the East Village and where Charlie lives is because, I talk to my neighbors. I've got 6 apartments in my building now have mesh routers, and that's just because we all talk to each other in the elevators and stuff. But a lot of New Yorkers just kind of hide away from their neighbors. But it's a community project, so you've got to get out there and talk to people to get it happening. Getting people on roofs and stuff, and organizing volunteers. It would be so much easier if we had just a couple of paid people, but people get married or have babies and stuff and just disappear, or go off to Burning Man. Yeah, so we had a few growing pains, and there's a really long ladder on the supernode, and I just can't make it up that ladder. we had an easy way to get up there, and they blocked it off, and now there's this giant ladder, and I just can't get up there.
We're like 40 minutes behind.
Okay. I'm getting the wind up here from Charlie. These are some interesting collaborations we're working on with churches and the Chinatown Business Improvement District. This is what Lisa's been working on. She'll be talking about that in a bit. Brooklyn Microgrid, a solar panel installation in Park Slope, NYCHA, and building management companies, which we want to start talking to, but we haven't. We got 400, over 400 now, people on the join form. So there's a lot of potential nodes we have out there, and we have to get more of those, turn more of those grey ones into red ones soon, into active nodes. So that's it for my presentation.
I'm gonna cut it as short as possible, but briefly talk about our regulatory things. So as Brian mentioned, we're fiscally sponsored by the Internet Society, which means that they've agreed to take on the legal entity-ness of us, with the hopes that within a year we'll have the few grand it takes to do the IRS stuff ourselves, and we have our own entity status that allows us to do things like have a bank account, employ people, refuse to not have to pay sales tax for state things, that kind of stuff. For the transition period, we need a finance committee, people who are empowered to make financial decisions that are not me and Brian, because we are the operators. Someone should be making sure we're fulfilling the requirements of the mission and the nonprofit. So if you would like to, if you have any nonprofit experience or know anyone who does, we would very much like them sitting on that committee. And then what that means is once a quarter, we will meet and just be like, okay, here are the things we're going to buy. This much is allocated for petty cash for purchases below a certain amount, that kind of stuff. And just as a heads up, it'll cost them between $5,000 and $10,000 to get entity status through the IRS using paid lawyers. If we find free lawyers or fill out the paperwork ourselves, it becomes significantly cheaper. But I know that I do not want to be in a snail mail argument with the IRS on whether or not we're an ISP. I know the Free Network Foundation in Kansas City went through this process, and it took them 3 years, and I was on the email thread for that, and there's probably 800, 900 emails, and I'd rather just pay the $5,000 to a lawyer to deal with it. Or find a free lawyer, but I don't think nonprofit lawyers do work for free for nonprofits. I'd like to just, in your packet, there's a budget. I just want to talk briefly about that.
So you don't have a slide on that?
I don't, can you pull it,
Can you pull it up?
it's in the Google Doc. It's called Draft Budget. We also have a variety of of resources like if you need flyers or outreach materials or anything like that, email us and let us know, or put them on that list that's already gone around, I guess. And we can give you access to that Google folder. We're going to move it to GitHub, as we discussed before, but right now it's in Google because it's any immediate things, like I think I did the math right.
What's the GPS module for?
So for site surveys, because I've been having this huge problem with GPS resolution and compatibility between data sets. Like you get LiDAR data where it says GPS of this point is such and such, and then Google Maps will be like 20 feet to the side.
I found out why.
Oh, cool. But I've had that with every RF mapping thing. But also it's they come with really high end. They come with really high end, like the airfighters ship with GPS modules, so that you can pre-calculate what your expected path loss is without like plugging in numbers in a calculator. It'll just be like, hey, you should have 77 dBm. You only have 15 dBm, point your antenna better. So that kind of stuff. And those are just for site surveys. Like it wouldn't live on the device. It would just be you go there and then like as you're lining them up, the GPS would help with those calculations.
Yeah, I think something like the airfighter, they come with GPS, but
Yeah.
it's for timing as well.
Right. But yeah, well, not this one, but yeah. Cool. So printing, big cost there. Two things. It's $1.50 per direct mailing flyer. So if we like had a single sheet, folded up with a postage stamp and dropped it in every apartment in the building, it costs $1.50 for all of that. So that would be a good way to like target a building if you know it's in your coverage zone or in our coverage zone. And also I want to have support stickers. Or stickers with our support phone number that we put on our devices, because I put a couple up in public places, and they're just like little white boxes, and other than like going to the splash page, you don't really know what they are, and so it'd be nice to have just like a little thing like that, and like get our like iconography out. And then like this is where it kind of gets flexible. Like we want a bunch of Ethernet cable, dual band routers. The ones we're prototyping cost $23 a piece at scale. So having 30 in stock would be enough to like keep that rolling. Network install kits, like that's a little flexible, but like the more you spend there, the longer the tools are gonna last. That's things like Ethernet crimpers and cable testers and that kind of stuff. And then for one of the things that's really important when you're doing site surveys is power, because you're like on a roof. And so, so we usually power the devices through the Ethernet cable. There's a standard called Power over Ethernet, and so it's really easy for permanent installs. But if you don't know if this thing's going to work out because of all the difficulties Brian talked about until you get up there, it becomes a huge pain to have to run that Ethernet cable before you even know if it's worth it. So batteries just simplify that process, and they're pretty expensive with charge control and stuff. Altogether, it brings us to just over $20,000 that the grant allocates, which means we have to raise 900 additional funds in the next year. So it's not the worst, and a lot of these are overestimated. So precisely to give us some wiggle room. So anything to add? Anything I'm missing? I mean, obviously labor. Right? too. Like, so with the ISOC grant, this is a revised budget because we asked for $30,000. They granted us 20, and so this hasn't been approved by anyone except like the people who drafted it. And so I'd like to get more input. Like, do people like it? Do people dislike it? Or do they not care? Raise your hand if you like it. Raise your hand if you dislike it. Cool. I will report that back to the ISOC committee. And I think Lisa has a few words to say about how outreach has gone.
So mine's pretty short too. So I started, it's grown organically just on its own, and it's pretty incredible, I would have to say. I started outreach with Brian and Charlie in September of this year. So what we did is that we did a lot of just emailing, cold calling. We have a database that somebody pulled of churches, religious institutions, other organizations, other city buildings as well. And so I've just been emailing, cold calling these places, some site visits, and that was actually pretty successful. We're working with a church in the East Village, more like ABC. They're on Avenue A, so they're kind of on the cusp of East Village, and they're very interested in learning more about the network and how to share their internet. So Brian did a survey there, and we are also in talks with Chinatown Business Improvement District, which is also on our list of kind of getting in touch with these folks, because what happens in the Business Improvement District is that it's a committee of people, or it's an organization where they help businesses become successful in that area. So Chinatown is one of the big ones. Little Italy is a smaller business improvement district, but there's one there. So they're all over the city, and I can't remember how many there are in the city. But it's great because once you get their buy-in, they'll help promote you in that area. So with Wellington Chen, who's the executive director at Chinatown Bid, he is interested in putting Wi-Fi in a couple of the parks, one of the pictures that you saw. So a couple of the parks in the area. He's also interested in a kiosk that is in the middle of Chinatown that is there to help tourists. And he is also interested in sharing the internet from his office, which is on Park Road, right down the street from 375 Pearl Street, which is the data center where we have our Supernode. So the BIDs are important. Also, I'm looking into getting in touch with a couple of other community boards. Two Bridges is an area that is right next to the building as well, and they have a community board. So that's what we've been doing so far. The challenges that I've personally faced when I go out and talk to churches or talk to anyone really is that they don't understand what we're trying to do. So when we say, we're going to share internet, they think, wait a minute, what about security? What about my security? If I were to share my internet, then how am I safe, and am I violating any regulations or laws or anything of that? We've addressed it, and then the other questions that they have, so they're not very technical. The folks that we've worked with at the East Village Church, they serve a Latino, Hispanic community. So the pastor himself, English is his second language, or maybe third language. It's definitely not his first language. So it's kind of about explaining to them, this is what we're doing, and this is what we can help you with. And that takes a little bit of time when you're trying to build that relationship with someone. So those are the challenges that we faced. But it's also, when you're trying to reach out on a cold call, it's really hard because you're leaving a lot of voicemails. Churches meet like a few times a week. It's not regular, and it's hard to stop by. So what's been very helpful is just forming relationships, and that's what I have with Chinatown Bid. I had a previous relationship with the executive director, just doing nonprofit work, and so that's how I got moved in. But if anybody in here has any relationships with the community board, or with a local church, or anyone in your local community, we would be happy to do the outreach on your behalf. I know everyone's really busy, so if you just want to send us information or to say, this place would be a good place to contact, we will definitely follow up with them. And we have a ton of materials that we put together too, flyers, like one pager for church and religious institutions that really describes what we're doing, the history of it. Really simple. We also have different templates One that we worked on was for the East Village, kind of addressing legality and all the other questions that we talked about during our meeting. So, I mean, if you have anybody or if you need any of these sort of documents, you can easily just pull it out, change some names, switch things around, and send it back to you. So it's very limited work on your part, and that's all I have to share about the community outreach. But if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Yes?
Have you tried to outreach to any like public housing, project housing, anything like that?
That is tricky.
I was wondering about that because I know
So
a lot of them are huge, like really tall.
So
rooftops.
that is our goal for outer borough retransmission of of the say data center access internet is the NYCHA buildings. I'm most familiar with Brooklyn because that's where I live. I know in every neighborhood south, east, and northeast of me, the public housing buildings are the tallest buildings. So the main problem there is working with the city, and that's coming down the line. And then the secondary problem is figuring out which ones we want and being able to roll it out very quickly and very professionally. We've kind of like been feeling, we're trying to kind of been figuring things out as we go with the super node, and we need to have that process like totally locked down. Because with like the city buildings, like they're gonna want us to come in for a day and be done. Maybe a week or something, but like we can't treat it as like a space we have access to. So that's gonna be hard, and I would not expect any move on that, like as far as installs until at least this fall.
Have you talked to Miguel Brewer's office at all?
Josh Breitbart with the broadband task force. We have a meeting with them whenever I figure out exactly which NYCHA buildings I want. So.
What about all of these ham repeaters, there are like 100 ham repeaters all over the city? They've got to be up on 12 places. Maybe you could, have some outreach with the people who run these ham repeaters. Maybe they could just, slap the hardware on the side of wherever get their hardware.
There's a one of our kind of researchers is a ham guy, and he would know more about that interfacing. I think it's fairly expensive to do ham to mesh interfacing.
No, I'm just talking about the location. They've got their antennas on high places.
Yeah.
So maybe you could just bolt it on the side of that.
Do you know these people?
No, I just know that there are hundreds of ham repeaters in this city.
Do you know where these ham operators hang out? Like, do they have a website or a meetup group, or like? I'm totally with you. I just wouldn't know where to start.
New York City Eric's is going to be teaching ham radio classes, and the guy who runs that, they have regular monthly meetings. I think it's the second Tuesday of each month. So you just look up NYC Eric's, ARECS.
I will be there. That's a great idea. We've also gone down similar veins with WBAI. They have an FM transmitter at the World Trade Center and the Empire State Building, which would give us incredible line of sight. They pay $50,000 a month for roof access, so like I'm fairly certain it's going to be more complicated than not to put our antennas, 1,000 feet in the air. But what we can 100% do is use the upper 96 megahertz of the FM band and use that to transmit data one way, which is about 4 gigabytes per day, and that's totally open. We're allowed to do that, and if we come up with anything cool, we can present to WBAI, get it stamped by their board, and put the whatever on their transmitter. So if you want to play around with data over novel spectrum, then send it.
I think the guy who runs Charles Hargrove, who runs Eric's, would be interested in something like that.
Cool. So I guess I kind of squeezed in the finance committee stuff and the new business, and you would spend like 5 minutes on the network commons license, like why and what and who.
I've got it here. Wait a second.
It's on that Google Drive too. It's under mesh organizing. Well, Brian, well, there's some dead time. I apologize. I had scheduled to like have a little breakout session about structure and organization and kind of like the like clerical things that no one ever wants to do. If you're interested in that stuff, which I would be kind of surprised if someone was, get in touch with me. I have a friend who just got back from abroad today, and I'm throwing him a surprise party at 8:30, so I have to get very soon. But yeah, so if you want to do structure or organizing or any of those like answer emails, like anything like that, then email me at charlie@nycmesh.net. And in general, anyone you see here who said they were involved before, Eddie, Oliver, Brian, they all have the same kind of naming thing, brian@nycmesh.net, etc. So, and if you need one of those so that you can do outreach, we can totally give you an email address. It's not a big deal.
If you filled in the join form here, our website wasn't the best on this screen, but if you filled in this join form, there's a network commons license that you'll agree to. Basically, we copied a lot of ideas from a network in Spain, Wi-Fi, and this was one very important idea that they insisted we had to implement. It's just basically that anyone that joins the network has to agree to extend the network and not abuse it or make profit off other people's work. And it says that in a very wordy way. So this is what you probably already agreed to and not read. Does anyone have any comments about, questions about this?
Are people free to be ignorant of how the network operates, etc., etc.?
Yeah. It's the other thing is we're very open about what we do. All our software is open source. We have one GitHub site where everything is.
Question over here.
Yeah.
Oh, hi. If you host a node, do you get to decide whether you allow anonymous access to your internet connection so it accesses the wider internet? Like if someone connects from a mesh node somewhere and they go through your internet connection, do you decide whether to allow that or not?
No. There's a bandwidth limiting, so if you're having bandwidth problems, you can cut down bandwidth over the Wi-Fi. We don't limit people connecting to it.
For us, this isn't the mesh. While is literally a network infrastructure on top of the internet, we don't seek for it to be an alternative to the internet as much as we wanted to extend that coverage to people who can't afford it, for people who want to learn more, for all the variety of reasons that like not having closed source books, for example. I personally see this as like kind of the networking extension of things like the GPL license or Wikipedia, translating it into physical infrastructure and not just digital rights, but like human rights. So yeah, by hosting a node, it means you're sharing your internet connection. If privacy and security bother you, you can use a VPN.
I'll say something here that, at the Internet Society, we have a new emphasis on community networking, and right now, and we worked hard to kind of get it into to get it in sort of awareness of it at the United Nations in the Sustainable Development Goals, so that people are thinking this way in terms of like how they build ICT infrastructure in their countries, but it's not necessarily getting the incumbent telephone company to build out, but empowering people to build up from the bottom. And things like NYC Mesh, we are very keen to support, to sort of, you know, proof of concept of how these kind of things work. And you know, this week as the Internet Governance Forum has been happening in Guadalajara in Mexico, and the guy from Wi-Fi was there, and you know, and made a very good speech about this. And they came at this session. They've been coming up with something called the Guadalajara Declaration, which is, you know, a statement of principles of how community networks should be formed and run. So, you know, this is part of something that's going on sort of globally, and it's got, you know, while it's grassroots, there's also sort of high level, you know, support.
I did a lot of research before I got involved, and the strange thing is that these networks are very popular in non-English speaking countries, and it took me a while to figure out why this might be, and all their software was written in like Catalan and all these different languages, and tech people then that speak English just ignore software that's not written in English. I think that's one of the big reasons why these community things haven't spread so quickly to English-speaking countries. And it's a big aim of mine to make this the first big English-speaking community network.
What?
So why do you think that's the case?
I think there's a bunch of programmers here. Whenever I start a project, I do a search to see if someone's done it before, and you find lots of open source software that's done whatever, but you always ignore the stuff that's in a different language because it's just too difficult to do, and you can't talk to the people that wrote it because of the language barriers. So yeah, it's very important for us to, you know, maintain all our code as open source so people can see it in English and whatnot.
Suggestion? In describing the network to people, we may have side by side says, here's what your current network options look like, and here's what our network options look like, just so people can see that really, when everything is up and running, it's the same functionality, except that, you know, there's a little more responsibility that you're also giving something for free. If people can see that, then they can quit too. Obviously, the network management is a very different process. We're just talking about end users. Also, I think a lot of it is just cultural. I mean, the way that broadband companies handle customers in the U.S. is pretty heavy-handed, and people, they just want to plug and play, and so they're willing to, you know, shell out $100 a month for the phone. They don't think twice about it, and they don't know their options. So part of it is just really letting people know. There's certainly, I don't mean to make it political, but there is kind of an activist element to it in educating people. I think that's really important. And in terms of being able to survive when the lights go out and things like that, we really need people to know what's underneath, even if they're not going to be network operators.
This was going to be, we're running out of time, but it was going to be part of the discussion about it. People that come to the Mesh usually for two different reasons. One is they just want internet, and the other one is that they hate Time Warner.
Spectrum. Change name now. Spectrum.
Yes, yeah, Spectrum, yeah. That was in my presentation. Yeah.
Wasn't that in a James Bond movie, one of the villains was charged with
It's
an organization called Spectrum?
It's totally because all New Yorkers hate Time Warner, so like you gotta rebrand ourselves.
Oh yeah, I think we played a part in their rebranding. Every article about us says we're trying to take over Time Warner.
I have a question actually. I didn't understand what is the legal status of NYC Mesh at this point?
We're a project of ISOC New York.
Okay.
Fiscal sponsorship is it's just an arrangement between you and a non-profit that they're going to take it, look after the finances.
Okay.
And
So basically, all we have to see is that the money that's donated is used for the purposes of the project and not pocketed and spent on something else.
But then the responsibility of and the implications, I mean, the responsibility of the network, or like if somebody gets hurt on the roof, you know,
we've got insurance now.
Okay. That's also society.
Well, they have to, you know, it has to come out of the donations or whatever, you know, it's got to be
Yeah.
paid for, they're not going to pay for it.
It was $475 for a year. So,
I mean, our deal with is basically is that it can't cost us money, do you know what I mean? They have to, they can only spend within the amount of money that comes in donations, you know, but we bought them a grant from.
No, I'm just wondering if like some volunteers, for themselves.
Liability insurance, and in fact, you know, with the discussion, we're getting more general liability insurance of our own to cover anything, you know, as well, you know. So, but
yeah, I think it's in our document folder. It's $1 million insurance for injuries on rooftops. Yeah, they won't let you on rooftops unless you have it.
So like, hypothetical question, if there was a bunch of nodes that were on solar power or batteries or generators and the power were to go out, are these nodes available, like can they communicate with each other? Like without the internet?
Yeah.
And that's through radio frequency?
Yeah.
Wi-Fi. And is there software for that, or is that just through like raw Linux?
It's I think there's a technical one there. It's that we.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's something router OS.
There's a software called OpenWRT, which is a cut-down version of Linux, and on top of that, you run a mesh protocol, which is an ad hoc Wi-Fi protocol, so they can all talk to each other.
And possibly
That's the mesh.
But it can work without internet.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it's connected to the Verizon tower, which can power itself because they have generators in case
Yeah.
they demolish them, you would still have internet.
Oh, very cool.
So you can host your own web server, like it's like a local IP address, 10 dot something.
Yeah. And
Okay.
and
You
we-
just got to know what it is, the address.
We have MDNS, which is zero config. So we have our own .mesh domain if you get onto the mesh. So to go to Julian's wiki, it's wiki.mesh.
Is this used for temporary networks too, let's say when disaster or something?
Yeah, you can do that. You usually use a. Yeah, you can go in with it and set up a quick ad hoc network.
What is LoRaWAN?
long range network is something that's used for IoT. It's like there's a thing called the Things Network that's out of Amsterdam, and they've got a New York end, and they have a meetup that you can go to. And basically, I don't know what frequency it runs on. Do you know?
I think it's 900.
But it's basically you can have a gateway, but it's a frequency that reaches a long way, and you can have a gateway, and it's very low data things that sort of so you can use it for IoT devices.
Do they require special chips?
Yes.
Right, this is the limit of my thing, but I know that if you go to like my live stream site, you'll find a whole hour by the founders of the thing talking about it on one of the IoT NY meetups. And if you look up the Things Network, you'll find it. And there's actually sort of competing standards on this. You know, that some of the incumbents are setting up their own networks for this, and it's just aimed at IoT. So it's not really so much a two-way network as a thing where you can just collect data from devices. so that you can do stuff with it.
Right, low bandwidth,
Yeah,
small.
yeah.
Yeah, and very low power. So some of the IoT things, you just put a battery in and it lasts a year. And
What about, does it have handoff from node to node? So let's say you make a vehicle, I can go to one node and you want a connection because.
yeah, that was one thing I was going to say. When you set up an emergency network, there's a different mode you put it in where all of the things have the same SSIDs, so you can actually move from node to node. That is one way, and especially in emergencies they use that. But our network, each node has this different IP address and a different SSID. We had to do that because if you set it up in the other method, you can't see all the nodes at once and monitor them very easily. So we had to give each node a separate IP address. I might get back to the thing about some people just want internet and some people just hate Time Warner, and I think the people that hate Time Warner need to help the people that just need internet. So we got to kind of work together and extend our networks to reach these people.
I saw some discussion about the fact that in the terms of service, people have to close, to lock their Wi-Fi, to put passwords on their Wi-Fi and not share it, not have open Wi-Fi. And that it suggested that the city should put into the franchise that people have to open their Wi-Fis up so that, it would then have the possibility of of basically meshing, people's routers. Do you have any thoughts about that kind of thing, of using existing routers and Wi-Fi routers and turning them into ad hoc mesh networks?
You have too many lobbyists.
Well, yeah, I'm in favor of using the link NYC. You mean just in people's apartments or whatever?
In fact, the guy from Link NYC at City Hall stood up and said, people talk about, giving access to Wi-Fi. He says, but if you go anywhere in the city, if you set up, you'll find like half a dozen Wi-Fi networks, but they're all locked down and they all, if some arrangement could have become so that you could just, basically you could have ambient connectivity anywhere in the city if all those networks were kind of unified into one network, which was an interesting concept. He kind of saw that as the future.
Basically, the ISP scared everyone into locking down their Wi-Fi.
There's a guy called Bob Frankston. Anybody here heard of him? Bob Frankston is one of the guys who invented SuperCalc, the original spreadsheet, and then he went to work for Microsoft, and at Microsoft he invented home networking, basically because he wanted to work from home, and so he kind of set up, why Windows had like networking interest, because he set it up back in the day. So anyway, he's like this nutter, he works for the IEEE, and his whole thing is that the whole system of internet access is completely screwed up because it's based in the old model of like they sell you the pipe, and that, access should be like the sidewalk, it's there, it's paid for, and you don't have to pay to walk down the block because it's just there. And he gets up and makes these speeches, and apparently nobody can really understand what the hell he's talking about, but he's very respected. And he just did it. I'll post the link on the meetup of him making the speech down in Guadalajara last weekend. It was a good session. I had a good session on community networking. The same one where the guy from Berkeley spoke. He was about half an hour before.
Was that Ramon?
And what he has is, he really struggles for metaphors to try and make people understand his point that the whole business of putting a toll on a bit, do you know what I mean, is ridiculous. And he's saying, it's like if you hook up your home network, you don't have to pay to send, per bit to send it around your home network, so why should you, at all? It's just infrastructure, and once it's in, it's there.
But regarding that, I mean, since 2000, there's been many initiatives in that regard. So, for example, FON, you know.
Yeah, FON. Yeah, I've used
FON was.
They actually got paid.
It's a Spanish initiative, and it promised that you have a home network, and then you open your Wi-Fi to the FON community, and then you can use any FON access point anywhere. And potentially this could expand into where everybody's FON, and then everybody's accessing everybody's network. But then the things that
I mean, Karma is a system like that right now, and it's in New York.
the thing is that with that, Google put money into that because they believed it was a great idea for their business. It was, but then that's what every now network company does. So when you buy Time Warner, then you can connect to every Time Warner. When you buy Verizon, you can connect to every Verizon and whatever. And they charge you for that and whatever. You know, like it's kind of like a service package. So I think, like you said, like the technology is there to have that, to have this network where everybody's open and can, you know, you can.
I mean, it used to be, you know, going back to Bob's metaphor of roads and so on. It used to be that everywhere was practically toll roads, and then eventually it became to a point where they said, okay, the roads are for everybody, they have the interstate. What do you put this?
Oh, I think it's mostly a liability issue. I used to run an open network, and so I read about
You're a
like
lawyer, I can
FBI.
tell.
Huh?
Are you a lawyer?
Loyal?
Lawyer.
Oh,
You're
no,
talking
no.
about
It's,
thinking
I
that-
just read news, like, you know, in terms of like, you know, FBI rating people for like child court things. So it's like, I don't want to be associated with that. I don't want to be like swatted or anything like that. So I start putting a pass on my Wi-Fi.
But that's the thing. It's not only a liability network. It's also because it's the way it is set up right now. It's supporting the architecture of control. Because if you open the network and you know you can have this transparency, or you can like use any network, then it's more difficult to enforce control and control population and control network.
I mean, if you can route it all the traffic through VPN or Tor network node or something like that, then that would be even better. So I would do that, if that's possible.
It is. You can set up Tor, and even on WRT you can set up a Tor node and route all the traffic from. You can open your phone to an anonymous network and route it through Tor and have your own private access that goes directly.
Without denying these issues, as the Internet Society, you know, we believe in the end-to-end principle and open internet working, and that every, you know, and pushing everybody up is like at the basic level. And then, you know, there are layers above that where there are problems that have to be solved in terms of content, behavior, and all this kind of thing. And, you know, and serious ones that are just arising from the fact of all, you know, a few billion IoT devices, you know, and DDoS attacks and this kind of thing that we're just seeing come up now that are causing it. And so, you know, we actually have two pillars that we work on. And one is access, and the other one is trust. And the two go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other, and we know that very well.
The point you were talking about before, to the guy who doesn't have any metaphors for these places, but the early internet is just called a network of networks. Like people had a network in this country or on this campus or whatever, and they joined them together with software like BGP, which is a mesh software. So the original idea of the internet was all these different networks being meshed together, and it was all free. Like you would want to connect to the other network because that would reduce traffic for you, and you wanted to be able to access things that were on their network. And this still goes on. Like in the supernode, we're now connected to the biggest IXP, which is DKIX, a German company, and they said, "Oh, we'll give you a gigabit for free." Like that's how it kind of is when you get up to this level. We're connecting our little mesh network to the biggest network in the world, DKIX, and they just gave it the bandwidth to us for free. And if we want more bandwidth, it's going to cost money, but basically all these networks just get in a building and they call it cross connects. They connect one network to another. And
Peering.
yeah, and yeah, peering, and it's very, it's not a, you don't pay by the bit or anything, and the ISPs is a natural thing that's evolved, where this hierarchical thing where you're being charged by the bit for information. That's not how networks should work. And
And they jack up the rates each year.
yeah, and they charge you more and more for renting that little box. And, yeah, but it's a racket. And
there's a whole scandal on this, is that they've been taking money from the public, from the Title II public telephone network, all the money from that, and putting it into the, and say, yeah, we're building fibre, and the fibre's going to these wireless towers, where they then, which are a private, unregulated network, where they can charge you as much as they damn like, but in data caps, and the people who paid for it are all the people that, basically don't have access, that are on landlines. I mean, there's a guy called Bruce Cushing, who writes in the Huffington Post, and he exposes it all, and the copper's rotting, the copper's rotting in the ground. They knocked out all the small ISPs, 10, 15 years ago, which is, why there is a need for this kind of activity.
yep.
I have a quick one. Let's say you have a Verizon internet service, you have a Verizon router. Is there a way to hook that up to the mesh and potentially share that internet with the mesh, or at least your
It's against your
local?
it's against your terms of service with Verizon.
It is.
It's legal. I've never read that.
Do it like with your neighbor? Could you like share your internet with
Yeah.
your neighbor or your whole house?
Yeah.
And what's the extent of that?
I share mine with my 6 neighbors in my building, and a bar across a block away, and another neighbor across the street. It's not illegal. Obviously, they wouldn't like you doing that. But.
Yeah, they could turn around and withdraw your service. It's not legal.
Yep.
Is that only with Verizon, or other ISPs? Other ISPs that you do that? Just Verizon?
No. I'm just saying it's totally legal to share your internet wherever you get it from. But, they have terms of service, and they've never challenged anyone sharing their internet, and there's theories about why they haven't. And one is that there was a big law in the 60s, a Carter phone law against AT&T, which basically said AT&T didn't want anyone connecting anything to their networks. So Carter phone had this like primitive acoustic coupling thing, and they took them to court and won. So because of this law, you're allowed to connect anything to a network as long as it doesn't harm the network. And and the reason we think that they've never stopped anyone from sharing their internet is because their terms of service aren't legal, and they don't want to go to court and find out that their terms of service aren't legal.
It's the same with Google Fiber, for example. Since the ones who have access to it, they get this gigabit connection or whatever. But in the terms of service of Google, they don't want you to host any website on your private connection. So you have a gigabit connection, but they're supposedly preventing you from running your own server at home and distributing your own content. And that's, again, it's something that is not legal to enforce, because it's breaking the neutrality of the internet, which we have to keep, and that's why also the mesh networking community is helping spreading and making people conscious about net neutrality, which is that the network should not prevent any use as long as it's not harming the network.
There is a thing about content distribution. It was an early use of kind of local networks like this was, when to take, just like content distribution networks do, is to take all the rich media and cache it locally so that people can access it.
Oh, if you're worried about terms of service, then I think business class of those services allows that. Because I have a friend who runs a peer-to-peer search engine, and she like downloads like terabytes of data each month, but she just uses business class. So, you know, if you're worried about breaking a term of service or something.
The thing about, you know, Verizon, we're very fortunate in New York to have FiOS, you know, believe it or not, you know, those of us that have it, is that they basically are very laissez-faire, you know, and, you know, there's no data limit, and you can basically do what the hell you like with it.
Grace, you had?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's almost like 8:15, so if we want to sort of like wrap it up. The smaller group together, welcome to like stay to use the space to chat a little bit longer. But for everyone, I thought this was amazing.
Okay. So,
Are there any like closing remarks?
Charlie was going to make some, but he's disappeared.
You have to go up to 1,000. You know, I want to say, you know, just to say to you that if you're not a member of the Internet Society New York chapter, that you should join. It's free. Go to internetsociety.org, and then you can join any chapter of 135 around the world.
Do you have any in Manchester?
Sorry?
Sorry?
Over here.
Oh. Do you have any in Manchester?
Manchester, New Hampshire.
No, but if you want to start a chapter up there, we're very keen to support you.
We have a community on Slack.com too. So if you want to join that, email us and I'll send you an invite.
And we should also send out a doodle to see when everyone can meet more regularly, like what day works best.
Okay.
Fridays at 6, I feel like people like we have parties and dinners together. So
Yeah, I'm surprised
we'll
we've got so
send
many
this
people.
out.
Well, does anyone have a preference for meetup days? Or? Well,
Personally, I like Fridays, but you know, Jewish people are on Shabbos on Friday night, so they can't make it, that's for sure.
I felt
Mondays are a good day.
Yeah, on Monday, yeah, because that's when I usually have been hosting meetups. So maybe Monday, does that work for you? No? What?
Yeah, Mondays are, we have meetings until like 9 or 10 here, so
What's
it's not so great. Other days work.
Tuesday?
Monday.
Tuesday?
But we'll send out something so we can get a better understanding of what chambers are.
Okay.
So yeah, great. Sorry for the mix-up at the very beginning, but I think this is a much more ideal space anyway. So
Yeah.
we'll continue to use this one.
So would be this space next time maybe? Or?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming everyone.
Oh, and if anyone is thirsty, there's water here. I brought it over.